Well, happy week 5, fam. We are, yes, about, I guess, a third of the way through the regular season in our family fantasy football league. And this week, I have a special guest here for our week 5 recap. Go ahead and state your name.
My name's Sam Corbell,
And how
and
are you related?
so this is probably gonna be the shortest one you're gonna get. Allison is my sister, which then makes you my brother-in-law, and so that's my only relation. So I'm kind of the odd one out here.
That's actually true. I think as Zach started to weave his story in there of how he knows everybody. It got very convoluted, so I hope people were able
Yeah.
to follow that. But yours is easily followed. I also like your shirt. Is that a Ditka?
No Bears. I have to rep it for Team Suckaditka.
Oh, that's perfect, man. I love it. So, how long have you been playing fantasy football?
So for probably about 4 or 5 years now, my buddies from college and I have had a league. But we finally started getting actually serious about it because there was guys for the last 2 years that just like weren't setting lineups towards the end of the year, like guys being out in the lineup, and so people started getting pissed off. So that's where we finally made it where you have to set your lineup or else you get penalized. And then bottom two on that league have to run a beer mile, and whoever runs the fastest beer mile gets first overall pick for next year. So we finally made like a little bit of a challenge and everything to keep guys interested.
Hey, that's nice. Which I appreciate you bringing up setting your lineups and stuff because trust me, it starts to happen for those of you who are new. If you're not doing so great and you feel like, hey, I'm out of the playoffs, you stop like caring so much, and that's really unfortunate because that impacts the rest of the league.
Right.
And hopefully, we have some incentives here, like highest score of the week, which we had
Yeah.
another new winner. We have actually a consolation bracket too. So even though if you don't make the playoffs, you're in the consolation bracket. If you win that, you get another $30. So like if you win
Yeah.
two high score weeks and the consolation bracket, you could end up being like
Yeah.
2-12 on the year and get your money back.
Basically getting back. Yeah. So
So it works out well. So what's one piece of advice you might have for those who are newer?
so the last two ones were really good about like setting lineups and what to look for and stuff. Mine's a little bit opposite is don't read too much into everything on the internet because it's like everybody's just looking for clickbait. They want to say, hey, like your starting running back went down, pick up these 5 guys, or like, you have the generators saying like start this guy, not this guy. Um, it takes probably 4 or 5 weeks to get like the data points of who's actually doing well, what is the team going to do, are they running the ball a lot, are they passing the ball a lot, and everybody in the beginning of the season is basically just throwing darts at a dartboard. So I personally don't spend a lot of time on the internet looking up stuff, and I mean the first 2 weeks it didn't work for me, and for the next three it has worked. So that's like nobody's an expert. So I mean a lot of times you can waste a lot of time and kind of kick yourself in the butt when you make a wrong decision, but kind of just go with your gut. Are the team scoring high points? Is my guy going to get some reps, and then kind of go from there?
I like that advice too because actually one of the things I did this year was really trim down the amount of like fantasy football podcasts I listen to. So I keep with one main one and I just like the guys and I listen to some of their other podcasts they do. And then I'll occasionally listen to another one. But last year I think I had like 3 or 4 lined up and that's all I was listening to. And
Yeah.
to your point, like you can get so overwhelmed with the data and so overwhelmed with who they like. And at the end of the day, even though they're experts, quote unquote, like they still get things wrong a lot, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think as Kyle actually said in our chat, it was like, they're like the weathermen, like they're just as good as we are
Oh yeah.
at it. So maybe trust your gut a little bit
Yeah.
more. And
I mean, that's what happened this year. I was texting you before the season, like trying to get information, like half point, for carries, all that stuff. So I was in a road trip to Jersey, just started ripping through podcasts, and they were like, "Oh, Cole Kmet's the sleeper this year.
yeah,
Get him late, get him in the ninth, 10th round. You don't need to get a tight end." So now here I am without a viable tight end because Cole Kmet's not getting thrown to because the Bears aren't throwing to anybody. So it's like, all these guys think they know everything, and then it can basically almost ruin your season because now I'm scrambling. There's no tight ends left. So,
yeah.
you know, those guys, they
Or
just want the clicks.
or get Kyle Pitts because he's an amazing tight end. And
Yeah.
then he fucking sucks. Like so that
Mm-hmm.
like well, I shouldn't say he sucks, he doesn't get the ball thrown to him. So yeah, the same
Yeah.
thing. I got him in a later round, so I feel better about it. But if I had gotten him in a round that was normal for a Kyle Pitts, the fourth-ish, fifth-ish round, I'd be a lot more upset because I'm like, I passed up on some good talent at that point to get this
Oh
guy
yeah.
who they're not throwing the ball to. So you're right. You don't really know what these offenses are doing.
Yeah. So
Um,
you just gotta wait and then, wait it out, see what happens this late in the season. Then you can kind of start tinkering with stuff maybe. But I tend to wait a few weeks and then, see how the chips fall and then kind of go from there.
so where are you calling us from? Because I mean, we're kind of spread out a little bit here. Where are you from?
So I am currently in Michigan. I'm in the suburbs of Detroit, Shelby Township to be exact. So it's cider season. So I got my whiskey cider here from the
Nice,
old cider mill. So
nice. I'm in Illinois. You know where I'm at. That's where I reside. All right. Well, enough about you. We don't care enough about you. We
fair
care
enough.
about the league. It's all about the
Yes,
league.
sir.
Um, so we're gonna talk about our ass whooping of the week. And this week, Bob laid the smackdown on Andy. So Bob's bandwagon beat up on the Colt Fins by a total of 26 point differential, I guess. And it was fairly intense. I don't know if I think it was a combination of a man that won and a man that lost. Like I don't even know how to describe it other than it was a rough one for Andy, and it was a pretty good one for Bobby. Had a couple good performances. I don't know if you saw anything special in that.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Hurts. I mean that's one of the ones that they were actually talking on the podcast that he's
Yep.
he's that guy this year, and I think they're just giving it to him, and he can run and he can pass, and I think that's the thing, with this league in particular with the point two per carry is that if you have a mobile quarterback, you're gonna rack up the points. We'll talk about it later, but my matchup, that's why I was so worried about Lamar Jackson, is like he can
Yeah.
easily go for 40, 50. Josh Allen is one of those guys that can scramble. Like those guys just rack up points because they can throw and pass. So Jalen Hurts, the Eagles are on a tear. Um, and finally Eckler is kind of starting to get the points. So that's nice to see that he's kind of ramping up a little bit more.
Yeah, two
Um,
weeks in a row now. I think Eckler's gotten over 30 2 weeks in a row, if I'm not mistaken. At least had great games 2 weeks in a row. After
yeah,
starting off terribly.
yeah. So I mean, it's nice to see that. And I mean, the Chargers are kind of banged up a little bit, so they're just good to have him back. You got something kind of stable to kind of fall back on. But I mean, tough with Russell Wilson. We'll get on the injury stuff. I have him in my other league. You thought let's ride, we were gonna go for it, but they came out with he's got a lat injury, so that's
Okay.
they I think they released that a couple days ago today.
Yeah.
He's got like a lat strain, so I mean.
I don't know. Yeah, Russ is not definitely not cooking. He's not doing well. As he really stuck to Cortland Sutton. I think is still getting balls. I mean, I think you have Cortland Sutton,
I
don't you?
do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. We'll get to your matchup, but we'll talk about that. But like Cortland Sutton's still getting the balls, but Judy has been a rough one. I mean, he had a nice first game because he had the huge passes, but otherwise it's like he's been a tough one to get going with that. And on Andy's side, I mean, Pittman didn't do well for him in the first game of the week.
Yeah.
Um, shoot, I have down here. I mean, you had Justin Jefferson who was going off against the Bears. I mean, you're looking at having at that thinking, okay, I'm going to do well, but really for the most part, rest of his players didn't do so hot. I mean, he
Yeah.
had some decent performances from Montgomery and Etienne, which is good to see Etienne kind of starting to get some run there too. But otherwise, just a really down week for Andy. So I know he's
Yeah.
struggling, and I think Russ is the main part of that, man. When you're only getting 10 points from your QB, I mean, you should be getting 20, right? Like you're looking to get 20 points from your quarterback. And when you're
Yeah.
getting half of that, that's tough. Now 10 more points from his QB wouldn't have done anything, but still, that's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing though is like, I mean, he had Gabe Davis on the bench this week, which like you can't predict who's going to go off for the Buffalo Bills. They got so many
Yeah.
guys out there, so it's like he'll be able to throw him right in there, and then once St. Brown is like a little bit more healthy, he basically runs that Lions offense. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's poised for a good bounce back. Like once Michael Pittman, they start getting him the ball more. So I think one of the better spots to be in because the loss sucks, but I mean at least his guys are out there, and I think moving
Yeah.
forward they should kind of stack out a little better.
Well,
But
we'll get off of Andy. I know Andy gets a little he's a little testy. He doesn't handle stress well. He, is just kind of a baby about a lot of stuff. So we'll stop picking on him.
You said it, not me.
But we have a couple nail biters of the week, and you're actually part of one. Like the number, like the main one, it was only a 5 point differential and two high scoring teams.
Yeah.
You ended up beating Louis by just 5 points. I think you had like 153 to his 148, kind of around there. Tell me about it. What did you like from your team?
I honestly, when I started saying that stuff in the group chat about, selling your guys' teams, I was projected 170 points. And I did not know that all of a sudden Tony Pollard and Dallas's defense were going to go off for like 40 points combined.
Yeah,
Dallas with the right
yeah.
off the bat, they got the muffed punt or the muffed punt, and then they go in for a scoop and score, then they block a punt. And so, Dallas's defense is one of those that you didn't see coming, like Dallas in general.
Well, heavy on turnovers. They were heavy on turnovers last year. They were good defense. I actually picked them this year. I dropped them week
Oh,
one.
did you?
And I can't remember why I dropped them, but I didn't want to. I actually had two good
Yeah,
defenses in my opinion at the time, and they just get a lot of turnovers, and so that's a big deal in
yeah.
fantasy football. It's not so much about the amount of points that you're giving up; it's more about how many sacks can you get, how many turnovers can you
Yeah.
get.
I thought once Dak went down, like the offense would kind of sputter, so then they would get more reps on defense and then let up more points. But I mean, they're balling. That's a good unit. So,
Yeah.
overall, I'm pretty happy with my running backs, like you guys have kind of talked about, have been continued to ball. But I'm gonna be in a bit of trouble when they start hitting their bye weeks because I don't have the firepower to fill Derrick Henry's 32 points this week. So
Yeah, but to me, here's what's scary about your team, Sam. Like, what's scary is that your receivers haven't done well for you the weeks that you're winning. They actually aren't carrying your team at all. Now, I will say, I think it was your last week or 2 weeks ago, they had some good games. It was like
yeah.
15 pointers from like all of them. That was like one week, but the other weeks, like they weren't carrying you at all. But yet, when you look at your receivers with Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, and Cortland Sutton, like I'm already fearful going against that. And so then when you add on, you have a three-headed monster with I already knew if Derrick Henry once he starts to warm up because he warms up as it gets colder and that man
Yeah.
starts to just bowl people down. Him and Chubb together, I thought was a great two picks, especially when you talk about .2 per carry because those are guys that will get the carries. So I thought that
Right.
was great. But then with Damian Pierce coming on, I think that's been really the catalyst, if I'm honest,
Oh
for your
yeah.
team because I mean, what week one he had like nothing. We were all like freaking out, like is this guy actually going to do
Yeah, he
something
was
this
supposed to be the
year?
guy.
When Rex Burkhead was getting all the touches, and now,
Mhm.
I mean, now it's just kind of scary. So
And that's another one of those things with like you don't know with fantasies because like I just had like those guys just fell in my lap, right? You never know how the draft is gonna play. Like, people pick up different people and like read different things. And so I just picked best available and it just happened to be, a couple of good running backs out there.
yeah,
So, but you never know. I mean, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb together, something happens to Chubb, Kareem Hunt starts taking all the reps. Like anything can happen week in and week out with these guys.
and
So
there goes Louis, and now Louis back on top, man. He's doing really well. I like big props to Louis for first time
yeah.
ever doing fantasy football, and honestly, he's doing well so far. Even though he's a fucking Dallas homer, I'll get out. We'll get to your
Yeah.
stupid trade here in a bit, but like
I mean,
just
even
crazy.
even like he's got Lamar Jackson, who's like just scary in and of itself. But then
Yeah,
like he drafted,
yeah,
he's got Geno Smith, who is like tearing the league up right now. So
yeah.
it's like with those quarterbacks, it's like it's crazy, what he's got on here. Like Thielen can go off too if they start blanketing Jefferson. So
Yeah,
I mean, Tyreek Hill can always go for 40. So it's like one of those things where it's like I think I just got lucky catching it where Tyreek only went for 10, and that's
yeah.
he gets two more catches, I'm for 30 yards, I'm done. This game's over. So I think I caught a little break here because those wide receivers on that team are a scary group.
Yeah, that's very true as well. He's got a good team, but we had another nail biter that wasn't technically as close in score, but man, was it close! I mean, honestly, Allison and Kyle going at it in that last game last night. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I know that it was nail biter for Allison. She was definitely stressing that whole time. But I mean, low scoring in a sense in their game,
Yeah.
which but they were close going into that game. I think they were within 5 or 6 points of each other going into it. Kyle's projected to have a couple more points, but that's why it's just a projection, people. It ain't reality because then Devontae Adams decided that hey, I got to win this for my girl, and so he ended up only getting 3 catches. Was there see another one that had like three
Three
catches?
three receptions, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he pulled a Gabe Davis, just not as good.
Yeah,
Um,
you're almost looking at like a Randy Moss Thanksgiving Day, three tutties, 3 receptions. Like,
and he almost did it because he had the pass interference calls on that one
yeah,
drive where he had 2 pass interference calls where he's going back to the ball. Those are just
right.
tough plays for the defense. I mean, I think it's always going to be tough, but yeah, I mean, he could have had more involvement too. And shoot, unfortunately, now he's going to be potentially suspended for a game. And they have a
Yeah.
bye week next week anyway, so she
It
might be
was
without Devontae Adams for 2 weeks potentially. I don't
that
know
was
if
a
that's going to.
crazy video. That was
Yeah.
that was nuts. So
Yeah, it's one of those like I imagine like losing in that fashion just can just eat at you, especially that kind of competitor. It doesn't.
yeah.
I'm not saying anything for what he did. It's just
Oh
more
no,
of.
I
But I
know.
appreciate
Because
him
you never know
apologizing right
too.
afterwards. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the video too, like that guy gets pushed and then he pops up real quick. But then I saw on Twitter that he went to the hospital and now he's like suing for the medical bills,
Oh
the
yeah,
camera guy. So it's like, you're just thinking like, are you trying to make a buck? Like, if you make a buck, you make a buck. But I mean,
dude. But that streaker in the Denver game is suing Wagner for the
I
hit.
don't think you can though, because isn't that trespassing?
Correct. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the man will lose, but he's still trying. Like this is the fucking world we're in. Like that guy goes streaking, gets what he should have gotten
He
from
got
doing
popped.
so, and then
Yeah.
he is going to sue them for how dare you rock my ass because I was trying to like ruin your game here.
Yeah.
Oh my god! But yeah, that was a nail biter all the way, and they really didn't have great games. If I'm honest, I mean, think about it. Kyle got like 75 points from Fournette and Josh Allen combined, and then scored a total of like 105. Like the rest of
Yeah.
his team just shat the bed. He played a guy
Yeah.
that didn't play. One of those like that's smack talk right there. That's probably smack talk of the
There
week,
you
saying, "Hey,
go.
I don't need all my guys to play."
Green Bay over in London, not putting up the points that he needed. I heard a stat. That's the first time we've ever sent 2 teams over 500 to London.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
crazy. But that's
yeah,
just really funny. But yeah, that was a nail biter all in and of itself. I mean, that's a really that was a close game. So that was the other one. But we got a
yeah,
couple other games to go at, and the next one is actually our high score of the week. We have another different person
yeah.
doing the high score of the week, and that's Tyler. Way to go, man! Scored 154 points basically against Case's Aces, and that was one where they came back. I mean, Josh Jacobs scored 33. Derek Carr got almost 20. So Case was
Yeah.
down. Samacy,
They
they
were
were
down
down.
big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was surprised to see that score at the end because I go to bed. I mean I gotta.
Yeah.
Halftime is way too late for me anyways. Like halftime was like 9 o'clock, and that's an hour and a half past my bedtime. So I
Yeah.
push it, but it was fun to see, and yeah, I was amazed. Jacobs looks good though. Like he just
Oh,
looks
yeah.
good right now.
He's bouncing off everybody, taking, at least breaking 1, 2 tackles and
Yeah,
yeah.
so he looks good, but yeah, obviously, but Tyler, I mean, his team is just solid too. He's had some really good weeks. I mean, I think he scored 130 something last week as well. Got 154 this week. Again, I mean, he's got a mobile quarterback in Kyler. He also has
Yeah.
Burrow, so whenever he's got to go off, I mean, he's got 2 good quarterbacks there. And then just kind of looking at the rest of his team, Brees Hall. So he's got his youngest player in Brees Hall and his oldest player in Travis Kelsey,
Yep.
combining for over 60 points for him to help lead him to victory. But then he had Marquise Brown and Amari Cooper both going for 17 plus each
And
to
don't
help
and
out
don't
in
forget
that
about the
victory as
fact that he's
well.
got he's got Jonathan Taylor on the bench right now with an
Yeah,
injury. So when he comes
yeah.
back, and Julio Jones is out there, like he's a little bit injured, but I mean, once they insert those guys back into the lineup, like who knows?
Julio, I'm
So
not so concerned with, man. I think that dude's done. I think he's gotten to a
yeah,
point now where, like, when he comes back to play, you probably play him, and then you won't be able to play him again because his fucking knee's
yeah.
gonna hurt for another two
Well,
weeks. And
that's all the Tampa receivers though. So it's basically like feature this guy for 1 week, Mike Evans until his hamstring goes, then hit Godwin, then go to Julio, and then what do they got? Cameron Brate down there, hit him, and
yep,
then
that's true. That's
and
very,
ride
very
and ride
true.
playoff Lenny all the way to
Yeah.
the NFC Championship.
But so Macy, they also have Cooper Cup. I think he's always going to be tough. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah,
had another, Cooper Cup week of over 20 points. And I think the worst part for him is that's what you expect. You expect that's what's going to be the case every week. He's going to
Yeah.
get his 20 plus. So, that's helping, carry their team as well. But they don't have a bad squad. I kind of feel bad because they're 1-4 now.
Yeah.
But their squad isn't like this awful team. I mean, I think they have a good team overall.
And I mean, with TJ Hawkinson, I mean, they did the right thing not playing TJ Hawkinson this week, but I mean, he's a stud for Detroit. And so, I mean, they're always finding him. So I think it's one of those like, you know, Cooper Cup's going to keep going off. Najee Harris just happened to run into Buffalo, who's a wagon. So it's like you're going to kind of run into a couple of those matchups where they're going to start firing. They're right on the doorstep there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andrews, that's another solid tight. I mean,
Oh
great
yeah.
tight end, getting you 19 points. So that's another nice piece to have. So now we'll get into the last game, and probably the most important is one where I beat Zach.
Yes.
I beat that man. And thank you. I will say I thought I was going to whoop his ass. That's what I thought going in because at some point I think going into the Cincy game I was projected for like 150 some odd points or whatnot, and
Yeah.
then T. Higgins gets injured early and doesn't come back in the game. Basically, he re-injured his ankle. That hurt. Mixon had an okay game. I mean, 13, 14 points isn't great. I'd like to see more from him. He hasn't been
Yeah.
great yet this year, but still that was okay. But I was worried after that because when I saw that, I'm like, man, I only got 121 at that point, and he still had Mahomes and Waller to go. But the fantasy gods were smiling on me. They knew that there was I just needed it, and so they made sure that what happened to T. Higgins also happened to Darren Waller. That
Yep.
was the key because I already knew Mahomes was going for 30. I literally
Oh
was
yeah.
like in my head, Mahomes is going for 30. What I care about is what is Waller going to do? Because I can't stop Mahomes. No one can
Right.
stop that guy. He's too good. And so I was worried. And so when I saw Waller was out, unfortunately I never like to root against the player and them get injured, but at the same time it's kind of like, okay, thank you. I needed that to help
Yeah.
me
Just a slight sprain, like a tweak.
yeah,
That's it.
secure a little bit of a victory there. So that was a nice W in that column. And now our division, I think we have like 3-2 and 2-3, and like everybody's so close. Like Tyler's at 4-1, so Tyler is leading the league right now at 4-1. But
Yeah.
you're on the rise at 3-2. But
So
we're still
you
bunched
guys
together.
you guys up top in the East Division, which is Allison and Zach at 3-2, and then Louie, you and Kyle all at 2-3.
Yeah,
And then below is Tyler's leading the league 4-1, and then me and Andy 3-2, Zach's 2-3, and then Casey's ace is 1-4. So it's all still grouped like
yeah.
with the matchups. It's anyone's league still, especially going into bye weeks. Like now it's gonna
Now's
be things are gonna change.
I think now is when you'll find out who actually, as Andy said last week, who actually prepared themselves for the bye week, who actually got their
Yeah.
bench strong, who can actually come in and still score because what we've been seeing now are such high scores for a reason, right? And you're still going to have high scores. It's not like you're not going to have that. And this week isn't even a crazy week. I want to say it's like week 8 or 9 where there's a lot of bye. Like there's a lot. Kind of as you
Yeah.
get in the middle of the bye is when you have most of the bye games for
Mhm.
people. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But yeah, you'll see what kind of depth people actually have on their team, and if you can stick with it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting now. But part of that issue is injuries, right? So you're talking about injuries, and probably the main injury that happened was Rashad Penny, who's on your team. Doesn't even play for you. Just sits the bench, going off and doing great.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, he had
but
like 32 last week, and I sat
that's what.
him, but yeah,
Yeah,
he's done. So I was telling you earlier, but I happened on this thing on Instagram. The account name is Sports Med Analytics. And so
okay.
it like brings kind of a list of like the heavy hitting guys, like who's out, and then like based on previous injuries or other injuries in the league, like what's the projected. So, the one example is like Chris Olave, right? Out with a concussion. It's his
Yep.
first one. They're saying like 6 to 10 days. So like most people in the league, first concussion 6 to 10 days, right? And then they talk about a couple of the other ones, like Pat Fryermuth might be out with like another concussion, so he might be out a little more, a couple
Because I
more
think that's
weeks.
his like third. That's like his third
Yeah,
concussion in less than 2 years. This is his second year in the league. He already has 3 concussions. That is
yeah.
unfortunate for a guy who's really talented.
Yeah, the other stat I happened upon was that the Steelers don't have any offensive touchdowns from their wide receivers this season.
Wow.
Yeah, I wrote that down right above my injury
That's
notes because they
that's
only
crazy.
Kenny Pickett scored, and I think their running backs have scored. But as far as I
Yep.
know, I don't think any of their wide receivers have scored any touchdowns.
It makes all the sense in the world. Makes all the
So,
sense in the world.
and then other than that, for injuries, I wrote down Tyreek Hill out for a
Yep.
couple weeks. Interesting to see what happens down there in Florida, though.
Jalen
With
Waddle might get some run, Allison. Who knows?
yeah, but also, I mean, you got to figure out who's throwing to him because two others saying maybe week 7 to 9, but Teddy went out because now they got the new like the spotter protocol, so he was a little bit dizzy, and then I don't even know who that backup is, but that's the only reason that those guys don't have
Yeah.
any, they all of a sudden don't have any points coming in this game.
Yep.
And then same thing with Russ now. You got to worry about Judy and Cortland Sutton, worrying about Russ not being able, if he plays, if he can't throw the deep ball, right, is what they're saying is it's mostly going to impact, not that they've been throwing it deep anyways, but
I think it's the accuracy on the deep ball. Like even he threw
yeah.
a deep ball in that game that was like 10 to 15 yards over Judy's head. Like it wasn't even
Yeah.
close.
And then
Uh,
the last thing I had was I think James Conner's out. I don't know what. I think it's a rib, I want to say.
yeah, he's out, and then the rest of their running backs are out except for Eno Benjamin. So Eno Benjamin might be somebody we talk about in the next kind of segment here too. But that's
Yeah,
right,
hush,
James
hush.
Conner. I put Arizona running backs.
Keep that one hush hush though. We
Oh,
don't.
I talk about them all, man. I don't care. My team's so good, I don't really worry about it.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah,
I barely have.
my team's one of the ones that's getting riddled by injuries. So that's why I need to I need to pick
Finally, we're trying. We're
I need to
trying.
pick up a couple of guys.
I put down Baker Mayfield. I don't know that it's really that impactful, but he's out. And but I can't say Sam Darnold's no better. I mean, last year Sam Darnold started out hot. Like he started out hot the first 3 weeks, I think, of the season. Sam Darnold was like
Yeah.
QB 2 or 3. It was something crazy. But he also had run in multiple touchdowns, which is abnormal for him. And then
Mhm.
he was just garbage the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had a trade offer, someone trying to send me DJ Moore, basically straight up, and it's like no, like because
Yeah.
he has nobody good throwing to him. He's a super talented guy who could be a top 5 wide receiver in our league, but unfortunately, he has people like Baker Mayfield and fucking Sam Darnold throwing him the ball, and
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater, who wasn't the greatest, some people like that. So I put that
Yeah.
one down. Saquon gave us a scare because he went out with that shoulder injury, getting like, I mean,
Yeah.
he landed on it, but he came back, so that was great to see. And then obviously my T Higgins, he went out, so that's a tough one because I'm kind of monitoring that to say I think I have the depth, especially if Michael Thomas comes back, to be
Yeah.
able to say, you know what, maybe I don't trust T Higgins this game based on what happened last game. Even if he goes off, I might be okay with it because I'm like, hey, I got Michael Thomas back. Olave might be out where the target's going to go anyways, so that could be helpful. And then you had Darren Waller having the issue last night with the hamstring. Hamstrings are tough; like those can get re-aggravated easily. You know more
Yeah.
than anybody.
Oh yeah. So I mean, this is the part of the season where you have to like start to think about this and then what are the implications of that? Because I mean, even especially looking at Saquon, like the Giants don't have anybody else. Like they have no wide receivers. So like Saquon is their guy.
Yeah,
So like if he goes down, like, get rid of the Giants defense, get rid of, Giants
good
kicker
point.
because they're not going to have anybody to go. So this is the time when you have to kind of start, right, throwing it all on the table and seeing what I have and what I need if somebody goes down. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's been tough. All right, so we had some trades happen this
yeah.
week. Kyle was involved in both of them, which is kind of funny. But first trade was Kyle traded Michael Gallup away to his Faja, Louis, for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I will say that I scoffed at it because first off, you got to be a Dallas Cowboy fan to even think that Michael Gallup is fucking anything. Because I swear to God, it's one of those things like, yeah, he's shown that he could do something someday, but he's just like a Rashad Penny. He's like a guy like that where, yeah, but when he's injured every third game and never gets to play, it's just always going to be that way. And he's coming off an ACL, I believe, and who knows. So I kind of laughed at it at first, but then CEH does what he did yesterday and doesn't do so hot. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was kind of a funny one. What was your thought on that trade?
It's just, I mean, anybody with the Chiefs is tough because you look at last night, Kelsey can go off for 4, but like Mahomes could rush for it. You can get Juju Smith Schuster. It's like you're gonna kind of feast your famine with all those guys. So if Gallup can stay healthy and it's like more of kind of a consistent spread the offense, might be a good trade just to have, like 10 point consistent 10 points every
True.
week. But you have that boomer bust from CEH where it's like he could go off for 30, especially running backs in this league get a lot of points. So,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
one thing I would say, and this is more of a tip, don't get too invested into one offense. Because at that point, he's got Tony Pollard already. I know he's got now Gallup in that same offense. I
yes.
don't remember if he had another player in that offense or not. But that's just a word to the wise in general. I try to diversify, like maybe two
Right.
players probably maximum from an offense, but I try not to get
Yeah.
too
Stealing
much
each
into
other's
one.
touchdowns and all
Yeah.
that.
And then obviously there's a trade between Kyle and I got George Kittle and oh,
I just wanted to give you a Aquarius grapefruit cocktail, but there's
okay.
2 splashes of victory since you and I both were victorious this
Oh,
year.
yeah, because I beat Zach and she beat Kyle. A
Yeah.
little Aquarius grapefruit right
So
here.
there you go.
Mm.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it tastes like victory. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
That's a good segue into Smack Talk of the week, even though it's the next week.
Yeah, that's very true. And that was not planned, so that's good. But no, he traded me George Kittle. I traded Tyler Algier. I just want to go over it quickly, just because I think it helps us both. For me,
Yeah.
I needed a tight end. It was Pitts being out anyways, and Pitts not performing well. And then he gets his backup to Cordero Patterson, who's out, so he gets kind of his backup at that point. So I think it helps us both, even though it was rated like heavily on my side in the app itself. That's not really how it is, in my opinion, just because of where both players are at, currently.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you're looking at need for the team and not, just like on paper who's going to get more points. So
yeah. But yeah, we're moving on to waiver wires. We won't touch on this for too long because I want us to get into our next matchups. But anybody in particular looking at in the waivers or think that's a big pickup for people?
Yeah, so there were a couple. Let me go to my waiver claims real quick. There were a couple guys. Obviously, you talked about Rashad Penny going down. So who's the next backup? Michigan State guy himself, Kenneth Walker the third.
Yep.
He showed himself. He's the reason they beat Michigan last year. So, that's a high-powered offense. They're featuring a lot of points. So, you're thinking that he's going to get a lot of reps. They go quick in those games. You already talked about, Benjamin's the other guy with a couple of those Arizona running backs going down. And then other than that, I didn't see much. Mostly it's just kind of running backs for me. What I've seen, the quarterbacks didn't look too great.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like some wide receivers that are still out there. I mean, George Pickens, as Andy and I talked about last week, he's still out there, and I think he could be a big part of that Pittsburgh offense. And I think the offense will improve. That's the hope, I guess. I mean, they're not great, so you don't actually know that. And then another one that I think is sneaky, and for us, we should know it, especially as Colts fans. But Alec Pierce, I mean, he's starting to get. I think he's got 9 targets 2 weeks in a row now. I mean, he's caught 8 this past week, and he caught like 7 the week before. I mean, since he came back from his concussion, like he's performed well, and that might be another wide receiver. If you're looking for a wide receiver depth, like he could be a good one to look out for. But those are just a couple, and then obviously Taysom Hill. Like
I was just looking at that
huge game, and I just think it's fun to talk about Taysom Hill because Andy hates him, and so therefore,
really?
Taysom Hill. Oh yeah, he does not like him, but yeah. So those are some of the. Oh, go ahead.
They're saying Sean Payton somewhere is sitting with his visor on, being like, "That's my boy right there," because he was his brainchild, his workhorse.
You know what? If you're struggling at tight end, which most of us are, unless you have a Mark Andrews or a Travis Kelce, I can just tell you that you're not gonna you're inconsistent. I think Njoku's another one I like a lot right now, and Louis has him. He's another one I like for consistency. Even Higbee didn't have a great game this past week, but Higbee's been good. But if you don't have either of those four, why not go for Taysom Hill? I mean, I'd have done that.
Might as well hit the button right now. Try to grab him.
That was great.
That's a good analysis, Greg.
That's great.
Very sharp thinking.
Any comment of the week that you enjoyed other than Allison just randomly coming down with a Aquarius grapefruit?
Honestly, Allison, I'm slightly biased because that is my sister, but you have to mention the tight end comment. Like Greg's got a tight end every week. That has to be on there. It's not necessarily smack talk, but it's great. And then kind of along the same lines as that drink there, she had your back throwing that gif up there of that guy falling on the ice of what Zach's gonna look like after you beat him. And
oh my God.
Falling down.
That guy is
Um,
Zach. You know that, right?
oh, that was
That's
actually
Zach.
Zach. Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought that was just an internet video. Oh, that makes it so much funnier.
Oh my God, it is Zach. So yeah, so
I did not
Allison
know that.
wins comments of the week. I
Yeah.
think
My
that's
other honorable mention was Andy was talking about Russell Wilson saying that Walmart's prices are going up because they got to pay him so much. And I thought that I was looking through them and I was like, that's hilarious.
he's always
So
got a good comment in there.
yeah.
So I agree. I
Not as
like
much
those.
smack this week, but just some funny comments overall from
Yeah, I
everybody.
think we do well with that. But yeah, I agree with you. Let's get better at actual smack talk and being okay when we actually lose, even though we talk some shit. So that's usually my game. But all right, last but not least is matchups coming up. So we got some matchups for next week. Any of them that like stand out to you? I mean, obviously with kind of our division being so close at 3-2 and then 2-3, I think any of us that are playing each other in that division, that's going to be big. But I don't even know if that happens this week. I think this is the week. Yeah. Oh, I think. Oh shit. Are we all like we might be split up where like the divisions are playing somebody in the other division this
I
week?
think so because I'm playing Allison this week.
Yeah, so it's
So
actually set up that way. I forgot because we're going into week 6, and what usually happens is then you play like the people in your division first, I believe, and then because we're going to play each other again, so it's all split up. So really, I don't think there's anything crazy when it comes to division matchups.
no.
But are there any games that stand out to you? I got a couple.
I mean, I'm looking at your matchup actually is one of those ones that looks pretty close. It's tough to handicap a couple of these because like people still have to input their bye week stuff like that. So
Sure.
some are still that, but I mean, I'm looking at yours as one of a good one, pretty close. Only 2.7 for the Chem Dogs is the line on that one, so that's going to
Yeah.
be a tight one that you see right off the bat. And then I think Louis' match is going to be another good one too with the against the Colt Fins. Those are the two that I just looked at.
Well, I'm a little upset that I play the Shemmy Dogs like this week. I wish it was next week because DeAndre Hopkins comes back next week and he's on my bench and he plays Kyler
Oh,
Murray. So usually if I got a quarterback, if I'm debating between a couple guys and I'm facing a quarterback that I have one of their receivers, I'll play that receiver
throw them in there.
trying
Yep.
to offset what might happen in that game.
Yeah.
So I'm a little disappointed that that's happening so a week too early. That just kind of is like so
Yeah.
close. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough matchup. I actually have you and Allison just because hey, that's a brother sister rivalry right there. I think that speaks volumes. It's kind of like when Samasi and I played, and I think that was week 3. That was just because hey, one of us wants to get off the schneid and
Rivalry week.
rivalry, at that point. And that's actually, I think this is a week of that because I also have Louis and Andy because that's their brother-in-laws.
Yep.
That's another rivalry right there. Those are the Omaha boys
Oh yeah.
facing off this week, and I'm giving the edge to Louis. I mean, Louis showing his team is hot right now, and they're playing well. Even though he didn't get the victory this week, he would have smoked most of us. I think he had the
Yep.
third highest point total of the week. That's always brutal when
Yep.
you have either if you have one of the top 3 scores and you end up losing in the week. It's just brutal. You know that.
Yeah.
Like we all have that feeling, but at
Oh
the
yeah.
same time,
That hurts.
yeah. At the same time, you could have these victories that people have had where they only scored like 105 points, 110 points, and yet they won because so it ends up evening
Feast or
out in the end.
famine. Pray to the fantasy gods.
Yeah, keep praying, everybody. Keep praying. But no, I appreciate you coming on this
Yeah,
podcast with
that
me
was
and
fun.
spending some time and sharing some knowledge. I really
I
appreciate
prepared
that.
for like 30 minutes, so anybody can come on here and do better than me. So don't be worried about it. I prepared for 30 minutes.
That's all I do as well. But yeah, appreciate having you on.
Yeah.
Sorry, and you're like the only one you're one of the few that's on Eastern time too. So
Yes.
I try to
So
be
it's
respectful of
it's
that.
almost bedtime.
It is almost bedtime for you. But once again, thank you, Sam.
Yep.
And thank you, fam. Hopefully you enjoyed this version of the podcast and good luck to everybody next week.